Welcome back, Generals, to another Let's Fix Generals 0 Hour to make the best game ever. Actually, that's not a Let's Fix, it's more presentation, yeah, that I wanted to do just to dump some notes about what I think how things are unfolding right now. So I think no one has like a definite answer of like how exactly everything will work in regards to community development for Generals Zero Hour. But from the last 5 days since release open source of Zero Hour and Generals and the other games, yeah, there were a lot of interactions. So I got a little bit of impressions, or a lot of impressions of what people want to do, and yeah, and what probably would be good for the game. And I think, I mean, likely everyone has the goal of making the game now a better experience. I mean, there's a lot of people who have the greatest feature requests and the best ideas, and yeah. So, but of course, this needs building, right? So my expectation, what we currently have going on is, so the community outpost wants to create. Let's put here some big text. Wants to create create the community patch, yeah, from the community for the community, yeah. So let's put that here. Nice color, yeah. So we have community patch, yeah. So that's one package, yeah, that the user accesses, and then it's all pretty. Yeah, like nice fixes in there. Oops, I didn't mean to put that. Like nice fixes in there, and yeah, every player would be happy to get hands on the community patch. But of course, that thing needs to be built, right? Needs to be designed. Okay, so what do we have here? We have, so we start here from community patch, and of course there's not just community patch efforts, and there's of course also always, and has always been, there is of course also the sphere of add-ons, mods, and maps, and yeah, other things, right? Yeah, so these are like things like a Contra mod, right? And Rise of the Reds and Shockwave, right? All these things, the big mods, right? Let's maybe take here some nice color. How do we do this? Yeah, let's take here yellow. Yeah, pretty yellow. Yeah. Okay, I just put them here into one category, but of course they are also yeah, like probably it's a lot of ecosystem around these things, but we just put these here into one category for simplification. Yeah? Okay, because I think like the general multiplayer community is mostly interested in community patch, and like single player players and players who like new experiences and like things that play much different from the original game, they are very likely interested here in the big mods and the nice add-ons and so on, right? Okay, so we have community patch, and so by the looks of it, this well, not by the looks, definitely this effort is led by, let's put here some color, community Outpost. It's a community around Legionnaire and the Arctic Dolphin and co, and they they build community relations, create tournaments and mapping contests and in-person events even, right? So they do. Can we make this bold maybe? Yeah. Ah, look at this. Yeah. So community outpost here is an entity organization, and they do, yeah, a lot of community relations, right? I think the yellow looks a bit wild, but okay, maybe. Oof. I'm not expert here with this thing. Color, here, community outposts. There we go. See. Okay, so community outpost is basically here the link, the publisher of the community patch. Yeah, let's put like a line here. Let's take a different color. Oh my gosh, I need to learn this. Yeah, so community outpost here will be pushing the patch project, right? And then the users, they will play this download, right? I mean, here the users will be somewhere and they will consume the patch, right? And yeah, so a community outpost is responsible for publishing this thing, but it's not necessarily the whole part of like authoring this project, right? So there will be more components, right? So we don't just have the out. Oh god. Oh boy. Oh boy. So maybe I should have prepared like a presentation before, right? Or maybe I just draw and writing. Maybe that works. So we just take a brush like this one, and I just say here. So we have yeah, here up here are the players, right? Player, right? They make use of it, right? And then obviously the players are also the community, right? So community, right? Community, yeah. And so like player and community are the same thing essentially, right? And the community, they will give feedback, right? So community outpost, and community outpost will talk, of course, also here with the community, right? And so there needs to be an exchange. Like community outpost releases a new patch, right? And community tells, like unleashes its rage towards the community outpost and tells what's great and what's not great, what needs changing, or we want this, deliver now, right? So they make the demands. It's the angry mob, right? Yeah, so all part of the GLA mind hive, right? So there's that. And of course, this is like this community is like the final destination, and community needs to be happy, right? Well, everyone needs to be happy, but community especially, right? And then of course there, that's because I spoke with a Dominator, because he mentioned that he considers leading a expert council effort. Considers. I'm not yet sure if that will happen, but he mentioned it. I think he mentioned it during our interview. I'm not sure. And so, in regards to the community patch, expert player council, which would have a special role because this expert player council would have more expertise than the community. Maybe not the community as a whole, but like on a really like tight level at the very top of the competitive multiplayer, right? So there could be here like this expert, the expert council, yeah, could be here. And that thing also reports here to the community outpost. So they are also here in dialogue, right? They talk with each other, yeah. And so expert council is very likely most concerned about anything that changes gameplay, right? And that could affect like the balancing in some regards, right? So if there are some bugs that affect balance, then the expert council would probably already be on the edge, right? Or yeah, if you want to tweak anything really, the expert council will be on the edge. A committee might be more relaxed, yeah, because casual players, they like shiny things, but expert council typically is very conservative, right? So community outpost needs to be here very careful in communications, yeah. And yeah, so there would be communications these ways to talk about community patch goals, right? So if expert council is not happy with something or community is not happy with something, then community outposts would know about this, right? Okay, but then of course community outpost, it would have a little bit too much here on his plate, right? If it would here talk with all these parties, publish the patches, make the players happy or angry, someone also needs to develop the community patch, right? So what we will have here is a another entity down here, and I think we can just use a brush to type. Let's pick a different color. Let's take here cyan. I hope that's not too. Let's take purple. Purple. Yeah. So there will be entities down here. So for example, there will be the super hacker, super hackers organization, and then there's also here the assembly armada, and yeah, these are entities that are part of development, and obviously there will be more. There will be like single actors as well, right, around here and there, right? And so these entities here will be in dialogue, will be exchanging information, will be exchanging developments, right? And yeah, will build basically all the foundations, the technology that caters towards the community patch, right? So these entities work together. Maybe I should have put here some different color, because now it's looks like one thing here. It's a bit upsetting. So if we take this brush here, can we make it larger? Oh. Okay, it's painted here once more. Let's pick a different color. And here, this blue. The assembly armada. The text looked prettier before, no? Ah, yeah, it's okay. Good. So like different entities will be here, right? Like single actors, maybe some other organizations as well, and they will come together and will try to build it, right? Try to build the technology. Like, so we will have to cater towards all things code and all things data, right? Because that concerns all the game. So data refers to like anything that is not code, right? So the C++ code, the tooling, that all is code. And anything data like audio and textures and game logic and AI scripts and all this kind of stuff, that is part of data. Yeah, and this stuff will need to be built down here, and then this will go to Community Outpost. And Community Outpost eventually also will, do some developments. That's certainly also possible. So there can also be communications back, right? And so here will be communications, right? Like that and like that, and back and forth and stuff like this, and people will communicate. Although I think here it looks like assembly armada and super hackers right now are basically the same thing. But yeah, there could be more stuff. Obviously, there can also be developments here. So I don't know exactly how it will look here on this side, but I think we can expect that there will be like so if you have like for example, you have like a shockwave, right? How do you write shockwave? Like, I don't know. I don't know if shockwave developers are still active, but let's say they were, then that there would be like the shockwave development team, and they would build their things, and then these entities here would also be in exchange, right? There would also be like communications, like, okay, can we borrow some functionality here or not? Or, like, can we do something, some collaboration, or can we cherry pick some changes here and there, right? Because in the end, it's all open source. Everyone can borrow from everyone. And yeah, I think there will be many people trying out different kind of things, building different main lines, right? But things can always be borrowed if they're useful, right? And if it serves different purposes, right? So let's say Shockwave wants to have some functionality here, then they can add it to their code base, and then they can here release their mods, right? And whatever, right? So there will be like these kinds of webs down here where the entities will try to build up things. And there will be the communication here with the community outposts. They will be responsible for then publishing the community patch, and will be here in exchange with the community and the expert council. Yeah. So that's the overall impression that I currently have about how things are unfolding. Now, I could be mistaken. Maybe it's slightly different or very different, but that's what I currently see. And so one of the big goals to begin with here for the community outpost is to make the community patch. Let's take here some other color. Let's take here some green. Yeah. So the community patch, at least for the beginning, is meant to be 1.04 compatible, which is great for the players. Yeah, the players will be very happy about this. Yeah, about this compatibility, because then they can match with all the legacy players who are currently still playing on all the Game Rangers and Redmans and CNC Onlines, right? But this is quite a tough, situation here for the developers, who will be, not so happy about this, because it increases complexity for everything, right? So basically we need to be very, very careful. And I think it will also make a community outpost maybe, I would say maybe neutral. Yeah. So we put like a smiley here with a straight mouth. Yeah. Will be neutral, because they will also need to employ testers. Yeah. Let's put here tester horde. Yeah. So they need a horde of testers who make sure that this community patch works correctly, doesn't cause incompatibilities, doesn't mismatch, doesn't introduce new bugs. So the tester horde needs to be here in exchange with the outpost, and needs to tell them, hey, this works, this doesn't work, you need to fix this. Now, obviously, the tester horde is not just in exchange with the outpost, but will also be here in exchange with the developers, right? So, like, the way I see it here, down here, there is probably more cutting edge stuff going on, whereas the community outpost will be more conservative, right? And they will maybe cherry pick these things and those things, right? But they won't go all in, especially if they want to have the 1.04 compatibility at the start. But it is very clear that going forward, long term, this compatibility is not sustainable. For the start, it's probably fine for some smaller fixes here and there, but long term, forget it, because it will be maintenance hell, and you will miss out on so many features and so many fixes. It will be ridiculous. So long term, this is not feasible, in my opinion. But short term, absolutely reasonable, because then you can like onboard players to the new experience, right? And then maybe you can like build a way to to pull the users into a new ecosystem where they're always part of the newest upgrades, right? So ideally, like those players who to join here the community patch will also stay within the community patch, right? Like you wouldn't want to have the situation that you release a community patch and then like it's its own version, and then you release another community patch, and then only some people from the previous community patch move to the next community patch, right? So ideally, everyone goes with the updates of the community patch. So I think that's quite a reasonable expectation to have. Right. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite a lot of stuff going on. The drawing is not the best, but I hope you get the gist of it. Did I forget anything? Let me see. I mean, this is down here. Yeah, pretty much the foundation where the main development goes. Community Outpost will be in dialogue with a lot of things. They will have a lot of responsibilities here. But so do the developers, of course. Yeah, I think this one here, the compatibility is tough. It's tough, but we can try. Yeah, players will be happy. I think that's the most important. And yeah, so I will be looking forward to how this will unfold. There will be a lot of work and also a lot of responsibilities in different kind of departments, right? So you need like the testers taking initiatives and being taken care of. Here there needs to be a lot of dialogue, so there needs to be like a lot of stuff happening. Experts need to look at stuff. So I guess experts will be out of work for the beginning because if community patch is meant to be compatible with 1.4, means there won't be any gameplay changes, nothing, right? So, expert counsel will be jobless. But yeah, community will be here in exchange. And yeah, down here in this layer, yeah, there also needs to be a lot of leadership and responsibilities taken. And I don't think it is necessary that people only look towards like specific people to make decisions. Like, I don't think that, like in the community outpost, I don't know exactly how it is because I haven't been part of it for. I don't know like too much about the community outpost organization in Metals, but there's probably not just one single person at the top that makes all the decisions, right? And I would hope that the same is true that for our development, that like different people take over different responsibilities and decisions, right? So that there's no one single person that like tries to run all the kinds of things because it's way too much responsibility and way too much work. Like I already noticed, like I can't keep up with what is happening right now. It's just too much. I don't even have enough time to like I just want to code, like, so from my perspective, I'm already overloaded and I think I don't even do that all that much. Yeah. So it's, yeah, I think spreading out the responsibilities large and, yeah, giving everyone a little bit to do, I think that is better than trying to concentrate it to like small actors or a small number of actors or a small number of groups. Yeah. So yeah, so this is my impression of what it currently looks like. Yeah, so this 1.04 compatibility topic will require that here in our development layer, we need to test what happens if we upgrade the code base to what's a newer compiler and a new SDK. So originally the game does compile with, let's put a different color, big brush. So there is color. Where's color? Here. So originally the game is compiled with Visual Studio 6, which is an artifact from the far past. So we will first test that this one. I think Omniblade made good progress today and got it mostly figured out for 0 hour. And this needs to be tested against 1.04 to see if it is compatible, our compilation. And once we know that this is compatible, then we have like the proper foundation and we're good to go. But then obviously we also want to upgrade to like a newer Visual Studio or like newer compilers in general, right? You can also use other platforms and so on, right? Well, actually not. It has to be compiled for Windows. Yeah. And then we would like test this against 1.04 and see if that is compatible. If it is not compatible, because of different SDK or something going on, different compiler, something is changing and more mismatches are coming, then it won't be possible to use the modern compiler and the modern, like, so this would maybe use like, let's put a different color, like a C++ 17, right? Something like that, or maybe some other version. And this one uses here the good old C++ 89, 80, 89. No, 98. Oh God, I cannot talk. Yeah, C++ 98. There we go. And yeah, this is very old, and but this means that we would have probably then two main lines when we develop this, and it would require us to like submit fixes to this VS6 mainline and then cherry pick those to here, while here we can already do some other developments like going towards x64 or swapping out the rendering backend, or I don't know, adding features and more complex fixes that change the game state and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, here we would have like simpler fixes like, okay, game crash here, memory corruption there, fix this and that, right? So something that would cater towards the 1.04 compatible community patch for the beginning. But long term, this thing should, let's pick a different color. Long term, this thing should die out, right? So there will be some point in time where this will be no longer relevant. Hopefully, yeah. I guess for purists that could still be a thing long term, but yeah, I expect that this will be just something that we can maintain at the beginning, and then it eventually would be obsoleted, yeah. And then like all the development would then continue here going forward, right, and evolve into a better foundation for the game, right? Yeah, so this would be for code. That's at least the impression that I have, that would be reasonable, yeah. Obviously, the more we progress, the more we discover, right? So yeah, it's nothing is set in stone. Always go with the best solution when we have it, right? Okay, so that's the code part, and then obviously there's a data part, and that one I don't yet have fully figured out what the best strategy there is. So yesterday I did have a review session with the guys in the community Outpost on the data changes that we already have implemented and identified in the General's Game Page project. And let's take a look at some numbers. So in Game Page we have, so the pull requests, and let's search for label game mismatch. This no mismatch with 1.4. Okay. So we added game mismatch with 104 to 221 reports. We only reviewed about half of the merged pulls. So how many pulls were there? How many pulls? 1,500. Okay, so if we extrapolate, let's say we go double, that would be 450 roundabout. So that would be about 30%. 30% of the changes that are currently in General's Game Page would be multiplayer incompatible with version 104. I think we also added here another one. We added a maybe where we weren't sure. There are 38. Okay, so let's add another 80. So 500, yeah, still around 33%, right? Okay, just the estimation. Okay, so one third of changes would be mismatching, and this includes like bugs, and also obviously all the controversial changes, which are obviously another category on its own, right? So ideally we want to have all the bug fixes in the long term, but the controversial changes, like anything that is just for the purpose of balancing but not a bug fix, that is like a whole other debate as to like, okay, do we actually want this at all, or do we want it maybe later, or slow rollout, or maybe dial back, or something like this. So these are not the controversial ones, are not so essential, but they are also not the majority. The majorities are bug fixes and improvements, and these can be game incompatible with 104, which is a pity, but of course not the end of the world, because you can still do some fundamental fixes, many fundamental fixes, but yeah, not everything, right? And of course we want everything. Yeah, and I'm not yet sure how we can split this apart. There is the idea of, so we do have the concept of in our data, we do have the concept here of different bundles. So we have the optional bundle and the core bundle. Maybe we should have another bundle. So we have a mod bundle core 1.04 compatible, for example, right? And then that would sit next to this one we already have. But yeah, what this would require us to do is, let me see, core items. So we would then had to add here. So here it reads in the ini files from the data ini folder, and it will exclude here certain code that it does not want. So here it does not want the optional ones, the optional code. So if we wanted to add a core 1.04 compatible bundle, we would need to add new markers, and then we would need to add these markers to all the various ini files that implement all these changes that affect game state. So if we go to, let me copy how it's written, yeah, like this. Yeah, and then we go to game files edited, data, ini. Let's open, I know it's used in command set here. So if we search for this here, so this is how then the marker is added, right? You have this optional begin and the optional end here, yeah? And here you have the core begin and the core end. And so if you build the core, then this one is included. If you build the optional, then this one is included, right? So then you could say, okay, we have another change where we have the core and then another marker for the game states compatible changes with 104, and so we would need to add more markers. But there's a complication, since we have so many changes, 500 changes, that's the estimation. That's a huge task to add this to all sorts of changes, right? So my worry is that we end up with huge blocks of duplicated code in these markers. Some things are probably simple, right? So if we maybe look at fx, and I don't know, like let's say this would cause a game state change, which it doesn't, but let's say, assume we have just touched this file, just this line here, then we would put the marker around this thing, so there would be like 2 entries of this, right? Which would be simple enough. But if you have like a huge block of this, and then you need to like duplicate a lot of code into these markers, 2 versions of the marker, things could become a little bit unholy eventually, right? So yeah, I'm not so sure like how good this would unfold. It could be quite a complication to the ini files. Okay, so there would be this possibility. Other possibility would be to like create a clean, a new repository and then just build it up similar to this and just like manually copy over all the changes handmade from like from the various changes that one wants to have. Like, so let's say we go to some page here. Let's go a bit back in history. So let's say we have, what do we have? Some bug, yeah. Like this one, yeah. And so this one would touch 5 files. And is this changing game state? I don't know. And then, yeah, you would cherry pick this and then copy it over into the original retail files. And then, yeah, you would take this and then everything would be good. But this would also be a lot of work because, yeah, you start cherry picking all these changes hand by hand. One by one, and it also means that you won't share a history. Like, so let's say a community outpost create this repository and they handpick the stuff, then we will never be compatible with each other, right? So every new change we would make in the future, they would always have to replicate it by hand, right? So this could be a very bad start into the venture. And then there's the other possibility that maybe it would be possible to create a fork of this project and then go back a bit further in the history and then create a branch from further back in the history and then cherry pick a bunch of new changes and leave out any changes that change the game state. But the problem here is with this approach is that the way we have built up the project, it was like on top of things, especially at the start. So the first commit to this repository is not particularly clean. The first 100 commits are actually quite jank, which makes this kind of exercise a little bit unholy. Let's see can we look at the commit history? Oof. Let's see. I think if you go back to 2021, I think it started in September. Oof, that didn't work. Huh. I don't know how to like see the rest, but you can look at the pull request. Yeah, so basically how it started, we didn't add like all the plain text files, we didn't add immediately as a foundation, but we just went like, okay, we want to touch this file, let's add this file, right? And so it just slowly built up to a certain point, and then all the original game files were there, and then we started adding more and more on top, and then over time we added more and more files, right? So there's no single point in time where there was like a clean foundation for everything, right? So that's a bit upsetting. So it will be not so easy to take a snapshot at some point, maybe a bit further up the history. Like, for example, here after this one, so there was also the concept. Initially, we started with a bunch of changes from Jundi and Exile, who made like faction cost changes to units and buildings, and we had that in for a while, but then reverted it at some point. So maybe the snapshot would have to be taken after that one is removed, right? But as you can see, there are already changes before that point that already have this game mismatch stuff. The yellow ones here are the game mismatch, and here these ones game mismatch maybe. So yeah, this is not good. So yeah, we're looking at the first 100 50 changes maybe of 1700 changes. So it's quite a bit, yeah. And I'm not sure if it would be easy to split this, like to make like a new line. Like we didn't plan it with this kind of modularity in mind. We said, okay, we just add changes on top of each other and we just go and try to make the best of it. If there was this requirement known that maybe we should have like a pristine branch which has no game state mismatches or no controversial issues, then maybe it would have been easier. It would have been way easier now, but we don't have this, so that's a bit of a problem. So I don't have a good solution for this yet. Maybe there can be some ideas. I don't know. It's a tough call, but we need some kind of satisfying solution for this. Yeah. Good. So there's that. But I think regarding code, since we all start fresh here, that shouldn't be a problem when we maintain here this VS6 one for the start, and then going forward here, I think this should be okay for the community patch. Shouldn't be a problem. But we need the starting point for the data patch, and maybe someone has some good ideas. I mean, one possibility also would be to like rebuild the entire history of this repository, make a new repository, and then cherry pick the changes up, but clean, right? So first add all the files, all the window files, ini files, pristine text, everything clean, and then first add all changes that are not mismatching, on top of each other, and then add all the changes that introduce game mismatch, and then have a separate branch that only adds controversial changes, but that is not part of the mainline. I think that would be a desirable approach if we were starting from scratch, doing this way. But since we are not at that point, but we are already further, but we don't have this in mind, it's a bit tricky. So I don't know how to deal with this right now. But there are options, but all of them require work. And since we have so many changes already in here, it's a lot of work. And I don't know. At least we can say the good thing is we have very good documentation. So all the pull requests are well documented. Most of the changes, especially after the initial 100 or so changes, are pretty isolated and clean. So there's typically no refactoring while changing something or adding something. There's no changes that are like of different disciplines, but there were some at the start where there were some changes where multiple things were mixed together, which should not have. The majority of the later changes are fine, but the early changes not so fine, which make it a bit upsetting. But there's a good amount of information, so at least that's there. But how do we deal with this? I don't know yet, but I'm sure someone smarter than me may have some additional informations. Or we just say, okay, we bite the bullet and we put in the work, and we go with one of the routes as outlined. All of them will require a lot of work. I would say the worst one is the one where we don't share a commit history, because then it's just entirely disconnected. You can't integrate any changes from anyone. I think that's not a good idea. I think if someone would fork a game page from this point on that we are at right now and would make additions, then it would be fine to cherry pick. But if someone made it a fork from like the initial commit of General's game page and then started to cherry pick, that wouldn't work well. So that's a problem I'm seeing. The mistake basically was that at the begin we didn't add a clean foundation, but we built our ways slowly up and already made changes while we figured other things out. So that there was a mistake. For for our code repository here for our code, we do not want to repeat this mistake. So we want to figure out everything in advance, build a clean slate at the beginning, and then only after we are happy with everything, with all the setup, all the structure, the file structure, the formatting, only then start actually making changes, so that there's like a clean history. There's a good cutoff point where someone can say, okay, I want to start from here, and then I want to cherry pick some changes to maybe build like a custom version, right? Yeah, so unfortunately, this is not possible with General's game page right now, which is, the only disadvantage I see. But it's a big one for this particular requirement that the community patch has, with stripping off all the changes that affect game state. If it was just the controversial changes, then I think it would be much less complexity. Then we could maybe just like create a fork and then just manually revert all the controversial changes, and then it would be in a state where, it was not controversial. But it would then be game state mismatching. Now, obviously, this approach would also be possible to then revert all the game state mismatches. But you're looking then at reverting changes from 500 pull requests. So that's a lot. Yeah, so I don't know. It will be a lot of work, let's say. As you can see, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved, and I hope I hope we will figure everything out. I think at the end of the day, if player is happy, then I think everyone can be happy, and let's get to work. Okay, good. So Mr. What's Up and Supachi or something like that, I can't remember his name, they will continue this labeling here to identify what is game mismatching. I think that's a good start, because then we at least know what is mismatching in here. And obviously we need to do the same consideration for game code, right? So if we consider that we only use the VS6 branch here, if this one is incompatible with 104, this one as the patch catering towards this one here, this effort, 104 compatible patch, then we should only add here changes that do not modify game state, do not cause mismatch, right? So same consideration here. And I mean, overall, this project here saves us years of work, so that's good. But it also will take a bit of work now. I hope that someone has some good ideas. I'm a bit worried about this, but maybe there's some clever tricks we can do to make it nice. Yeah. Good. Is there anything else I can say? I don't think so. I hope everyone has a good time developing, testing, talking with each other. And in the end, hopefully players are happy with what we can create. Yeah. Good. How long was the session? 50 minutes. I think no need to talk more than that. So that's the impression that I have. This is going. If anyone thinks then there need to be improvements in the overall organization, then I guess you can contact the leadership of the community Outpost. They will be in charge of the communications towards here the development teams, right? So here these people will talk with each other, right? And community here will talk with the community Outpost. This alleviates us from like organizational matters, right? So like if community like approaches us directly here, then yeah, maybe that's too much to deal with us. So I think it's good that it gets filtered here by Community Outpost, and they can give us a summary of the demands, yeah, of the angry mob, and or the happy mob, right? So yeah, I think this is quite good, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And I wish everyone good days. We're now 5 days after, we can call it ADZH release, source code release. Yeah. A new time counting has begun, right? A new age. Yeah. Good. Then, yeah, I will take a break here. I wish you a great day or night. Until next time. Goodbye.